There's a kind of life that looks good on the outside. You're working, you're providing, you're showing up, but underneath it all, something feels off. Disconnected, maybe unfulfilled, possibly even stuck. Not because you don't care, but because somewhere along the way, you stopped being intentional. What if the biggest threat to your life isn't failure, but complacency? Welcome back to the It's Your Story to Tell podcast. I'm Megan, your host, and we're here having honest conversations about healing, growth, and stepping into the life you were created for. Today's conversation is one I think so many people are going to resonate with. I'm joined by Marty Hofmann, and we're talking about something that quietly shapes so many lives: complacency, and what it takes to break free from it. So thank you so much, Marty, for being here with me and sharing a little bit about your story, what you've learned along your journey, and how you're using it to help others.
Thanks for having me on here, Megan. It's a pleasure.
What if your breakthrough wasn't found in striving, but in walking? What if clarity, healing, and direction came not in the hustle, but in quiet, intentional steps led by the Spirit? Sacred Pathways is a monthly walking mentorship designed to align your body, soul, and spirit with the wisdom of God. Each month, you'll receive 12 walking lessons. These are short teachings designed to be experienced on the move. You'll also get one live group session and access to a community of women committed to walking in purpose. This is more than a routine. It's a rhythm of renewal, a sacred invitation to process life with God, one step at a time. If you're hungry for deeper intimacy with the Lord, clarity in your calling, and healing that moves through your whole being, this is your path. Join Sacred Pathways and start walking in wisdom today. Now enrolling on itsyourstorytotell.com.
Well, I really like our audience to get to know our guests. And so we're going to start way back. You don't look that old, but back to growing up and how that shaped who you are today. So take it away from your childhood.
So I grew up in Iowa. I was a farm kid, and I have 9 siblings, 2 parents, never got divorced. They'll celebrate 50 years this year, so kudos to mom and dad.
Oh, that's awesome. My parents just celebrated 50 this year, so we might be around the same age.
Yeah, probably so. But I'm the fourth from the top, fourth oldest. Farming in the 80s was hard, so we were poor. I should just maybe say it like that. But it was a hard time. Interest rates were high, and there was a lot of hardship. I think also probably being one of 10 kids, you just don't get the attention from mom and dad. I suppose every kid wants more attention from mom and dad, but especially when there's 9 of you fighting for it. And then, my dad was working a lot trying to provide for us. So just not a lot of parental involvement growing up. And I would say probably a lot of competition among siblings. We're all very competitive, but I think that's kind of the nature of a big family anyway. And so, yeah, that was kind of my childhood growing up. Learned how to work hard early on. I was kind of a must around the Hoffman family growing up as we were going to work. And my dad was a sheep shearer, started shearing sheep to provide for us. And he later taught me how to do that as well. And that was an opportunity to grow, but also earn. My dad always said it was fast cash because you would get paid the day you did the work. And so that was kind of how I put myself through high school and actually college too. Lots of ups and downs, I would say, through there. Some of it had to do with big family. Some of it just had to do with growing pains as a kid. When I went to Bible college, kind of honestly, probably for the same reason a lot of people go to college, kind of trying to just figure life out and push the reset button. Specifically, I went to Bible school because my dad said, I don't care what you do, but I want you to go to get grounded. So go to 1 year of Bible college. And there was this really cheap school in Wyoming that I could afford. That's where I went. And it was really, really good for me. It gave me a grounding and it gave me good friends and just the support I needed. And I later met my wife there as a senior. We got married and I was a youth pastor for a bit, like 8 years in Montana, lived in northern Montana. And we had 3 kids up there. And then we moved back to Oklahoma in 2010. My father-in-law was sick with cancer, so we moved back to spend time with him. And we had 3 more kids in Oklahoma then. And I started doing real estate.
Carrying on the tradition of big families.
Yes. I started doing real estate and later started a podcast, just realizing that if I can do these things with my handicaps, then anybody can. It comes down to intentionality and the compound effect that showing up every day consistently can lead to.
I love that you are acknowledging that anything is possible, that we don't have to limit ourselves, even when we do have things that others might say that limits me. It doesn't have to if you choose differently. I love this killing complacency. So tell me how you came up with this idea that you were going to kill complacency. What did complacency look like in your life? So if someone's listening, they can question, could this apply to me?
Yeah. So complacency, really how it came up with Megan is just realizing that I wanted to get back. But I have my own limitations, but I wanted to use that as my as my energy, my power, my reason. Like if I can do it, anyone can do it. My mantra, I guess. But complacency isn't necessarily laziness. It's drift. It's it's not rebellion. It's neglect. It's not living up to your full potential. So I think even today I have complacency in one way or the other. We all do. Maybe it's the potato chips that we've somehow told ourselves are okay to eat, or, picking up the phone instead of engaging with our kids in a conversation. Like it's all over. So it isn't necessarily laziness like you might think, but it's just that neglect of living up to who you could be. And kind of how it came about is I wanted to give back. I wanted to help people. And I realized that I was kind of in the position where I was because of intentionality. And the enemy of intentionality is complacency. And so behind every great cause, there's a cause, which is intentionality. There's an enemy, which is complacency. And then there's the hero. And so what I want to do is I want to make people be their own hero by leaning into intentionality. But kill complacency is a much better hook than live intentionally.
Well, was there a time in your life that you just woke up and you're like, I am complacent and I want to be different? Or how did you just recognize complacency in your life?
I would say there's been several wake up calls, several times where, and I think we all have those big ones, where you suddenly realize, okay, I can't keep eating like I used to eat. Like, this is not working. And I would say that would be one for me. I went in at 40 for a physical. The paper I got back from the doctor about my condition on my body was telling me that I was complacent and I needed to change. So that would have been one wake up call. I can tell you a story about my wife saying, Marty, we need to go for a walk. I'd been out shearing alpacas, gone for weeks. And we went for a walk and she told me, Marty, this isn't working. I've been thinking about leaving because, and she didn't use these words, but you've been complacent. Like you're out providing, but you're not present. And it was creating this disconnect. So, I would say, Megan, there's been lots of times in my life where there's these big moments of complacency alerts. But I would say that the birth of kill complacency really just came from sitting down with a whiteboard and trying to come up with a name, but realizing that intentionality was the key ingredient to success in life and living that legacy that you want to live, living that story that you're proud to tell.
I love that. And I know so many of our listeners, that is why they tune in, is because they like to hear those stories of where you were able to turn things around, where things looked one way, but then it
Yeah.
became the life that you dream of. And I really appreciate you sharing about the moment your wife came to you and had that conversation. And I'm going to tell you why. So the majority of my listeners are women, and I don't get very many men who say, hey, let me come on your podcast and share about my story or how I'm using what I've learned. And I think it is so powerful that the episodes that I am been putting out, I've been talking about like healthy relationship dynamics and things like that. So I'd love to just, if you don't mind, can we talk about that for a minute?
Sure.
Okay.
Open book today.
So your so your wife comes to you. She has this conversation, a hard conversation to bring up with anyone because it sounds like, she loved you. She's wanting connection. She's wanting your presence. But yet there's this reality of, okay, we've got six kids. Is it six kids?
Six
Or,
kids,
a bunch of
yeah.
kids. You're trying to provide as well. And so how did that conversation go? I'm really interested in how you navigated that conversation, because it can benefit, I know, so many people listening.
So I would say, yeah, first off, kudos to my wife because she was very self-controlled. She wasn't angry. She asked to go for a walk. I'm sure we'd probably eaten a meal, so I was fed. Like, I think that's a big part. Like, feed your man if you're
That's
gonna have these
good.
conversations. It goes a long ways. I don't remember all those details, but I know that I was blindsided by it, Megan. I wasn't expecting it. It was, and that's the thing about complacency is you don't realize how complacent you've gotten until you have those wake up calls. But I remember we were walking down this dirt road and she just said, I've been thinking about leaving you. I don't feel emotionally connected to you. Like there's this disconnect and we weren't connecting. I'd been on the road and I would call, but I was shearing alpacas. Like it's the same old for me. Like for a lot of men, like it's the same. We don't feel like we have anything to share. Women, I guess I should say this, they probably don't care, but us men, it's the same old, same old. So I wasn't opening up. I wasn't sharing. I wasn't communicating. And since then, I read a book called How We Love by Yokovich, and they talk about how you have different styles of how you love. And it's based on a question on how you were comforted as a kid. And I would say a lot of my handicaps in marriage would come from that. And that is that I didn't really feel comforted as a kid. My parents were busy and it was always suck it up, buttercup. So the style that I tend to have is be the avoider. And that means I don't open up and I just stuff things. And so my wife and I can talk openly about these things now because we have names for it. But at the time there was this disconnect and it was my fault. And so when she came to me and told me that, yeah, it was like, well, I got to fix this. And so that's what, I mean, I restructured what I was doing because I didn't want to lose my wife. I didn't want to have this life without a wife. So we made adjustments and we changed things. We started doing intentional date nights. We started reading books together. We went to a marriage conference. All the things we should have been doing, we started doing to create oneness.
Really love that and how well that shows your complacency and then your willingness to hear feedback. I know for me, for a long time, I had a really hard time receiving feedback.
Mhm.
And part of that does relate back to childhood and coping mechanisms and perfectionism that I had developed as a way to be seen as lovable, worthy, and not being able to take feedback was a handicap
Mhm.
for me. And I remember it was one of my managers that I worked with. I was in a management development program and he was working with me and we were having a call, and the feedback, I was just not being very open, let's just say, or maybe defending why
Yeah.
that feedback was not accurate. And he said something that at the moment I was taken back by, but at the same time, it really caused me to stop and think. And he said, Megan, I am trying to determine, is this will or skill? I am trying to help you. If it's a skill, I can help you. If it's your will, there is nothing I can do. And I was like, wow, okay, this person believes in me. They're investing time in me. So why am I responding in this way? And it was really life changing for me when I recognized that I had this handicap of being able to take feedback. And I remember another manager who was very kind and not as direct, always would tell me feedback is a gift. Feedback is a gift. Now, I'll say most feedback is a gift.
Yes.
There are people who they haven't demonstrated that they're a safe place to get their feedback. They don't do it in a constructive manner. And so I'm not talking about those, but like your wife, who, like you said, you probably had a good meal. She said, hey, let's get outside, which having conversations that are hard in nature and while walking is a really great way to do it, because it helps to regulate your body. And in fact, I have a whole mentorship program around walking in order to help you process hard things because how it allows your body to be calm. So that was awesome that she was able to come to you and you were able to receive that feedback. And I love that the context of it as well is something I think people can learn from, because when we come with our feedback, and if it's not coming in a compassionate and constructive and clear, like, what am I needing? And also saying, like, I love you and I don't want to leave. So how do we figure
Yeah.
this out together? And then you also said something that I thought was powerful is you didn't have words for it at the time, but you have these words now. And I navigated a really hard time with my daughter. And one of the things that we did was we did a program for dialectical behavior skills, and it gave us language around our feelings and emotions that we didn't have before, that allowed us to have better communications. Because suck it up, buttercup, and keep on going. Well, you don't have words to talk about these hard conversations. So there's probably a lot of people listening that have struggled with how to name what they're feeling and effectively communicate. I am so grateful that you're here and willing to share your story, and I can't wait to hear some real practical things that listeners can do to move out of complacency and into intentionality.
Sounds great.